Gerrit, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. How are you? You okay?
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's a sunny September day in British Columbia, so I think it's bonus.
Lovely. A
Yeah.
lot better than us here in the UK. I'm based in Leeds and yeah, it's raining. I'm looking outside the window now. It's raining as it always is pretty much in England. So jealous. But no, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. Reason for this is to help shine a light on the actuarial market from people from all across the world, whether that's the UK, the US, or Canada. Really keen to get your insights on the actuarial market, Gerrit, and understand how you broke into the profession. And for anyone out there that's perhaps thinking about getting into the actuarial markets, I think a podcast like this will be really, really insightful for people looking to break into it, and for those who are more experienced and more seasoned who might feel a little bit stuck in their role or looking for some advice, or someone who doesn't have that mentor to lean on. Just a series of episodes for people to revert back to. And go from there. So does that all make sense to you?
Makes sense to me. Yeah, thank you. Happy to
Lovely,
help.
lovely, great. Well, let me take you back then. Let me take you back to when you first thought about the actuarial market. I'm keen, and when I've been speaking to people, everyone always gives me a different answer, but I'm keen to understand what inspired you in regards to pursuing the actuarial market, and was there a moment or someone who influenced your decision in regards to getting involved with this?
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. I think for me, it was a toss-up between actuarial science and engineering. Um, as a it's always one of the top professions. When you're in high school and you know nothing about life and you start doing your research, you always go like, where would I be able to make a decent income, and where, like, what professions seem to have good work-life balance. And you speak to a couple of people, and you go and job shadow a couple of people, and then you try and figure out where you want to go. But for me, it's always been like I've always had a love for like mathematics and the sciences, except for biology, which means it's ruled out becoming a doctor or a vet. And then my dad actually worked for a firm in South Africa called Alexander Forbes. So I went and did a job shadow at Alexander Forbes, and yeah, I liked the cleanliness of it. So
Yeah,
I think I don't know, I might be able to speak for quite a few other actuaries, but um, one of the reasons that kept me out of engineering is like mathematics is just so clean, and
yeah,
car engines are not. Any form of
absolutely.
engines or construction sites, and like I just lean towards like having a more a cleaner work environment. So yeah, so I think it was a combination of the profession having a really good reputation out there for high levels of income, good work-life balance, and the fact that you can solve interesting mathematical and statistical problems,
Yeah,
and the fact that it's physically a clean environment that
that
really
that's
got me
good.
into it.
That's two. You might look at it as quite similar, but also very different professions your life could have led down. So
Yeah,
that that's interesting, and you touched upon it there. You studied in South Africa, right?
yeah,
Born and raised, University of Pretoria. I
yeah.
hope I'm pronouncing that right. How was that?
It was pretty good. I think so. Like University of Pretoria, I think it's still one of the top ranked schools in the world, somewhere in
Yeah,
the top 500 at least, from my knowledge. So we had really good lecturers, really nice campus. And like I think for most people, like that first year, like the transition from high school to university was hard.
yeah,
And then I think one of the most interesting parts of I think my university career is South Africa share a syllabus with the faculty and institute. Some of the subjects would be like study materials from the faculty and institute.
Yeah.
So I remember having half my classes in Afrikaans, which is my first language, and the other half in English, and then
Right.
learning statistics for the first time properly was really hard. Transitioning between the two languages. So I think for me the hardest one was just like switching into actually like studying in English full time.
Hmm.
And I remember those faculty and institute notes with very highbrow English in them. Me and the thesaurus,
Yeah.
basically full time sitting with my study notes. So I think I can thank those faculty and institute notes for half of that, and Harry Potter for half of my English vocabulary.
That's the first for me. I think Harry Potter being thanked for someone making it as an actuary, and it's almost like you're doing 2 degrees at once there, learning English, getting all that done and dusted in regards to the words that I can only imagine have numerous syllables in it, and then obviously what you're doing as well.
Yeah.
If we go towards kind of once you qualified and once you got yourself out of university, I can see, and we've spoken about it in regards to your first roles within the actuarial space. You seem to have worked in both traditional and non-traditional actuarial roles. How did you first kind of land that role? And was there anything that you did that you think helped you stand out?
No, I think I actually like maybe taking a step back, like at the
Yeah,
time when I was looking for my first job, it was the time of the financial crisis and end of the 2010s. And a lot of the my peers, were proactive, and they went out and they got their jobs in their second or third year of university.
yeah,
And as somebody that like fairly well, like you get an exemption for a bunch of the exams. Like I was coming out with 10 or 11 exemptions out of finishing my degree, and maybe a little overconfident, thinking that you
yeah.
get a job easily. And then the market ended up crashing, and there was a lot of uncertainty around. So I distinctly remember being so desperate that friend of me and myself and a friend set up some resumes, and we literally drove to offices of different companies who employ actuaries, and like met with the PA and said, here's our resumes, and
Yeah.
like we'd be happy to speak to somebody, we'd be happy to come in and just shadow people if you have anything available. And that actually ended up working for both of us. We walked into a startup company basically at that point,
Yeah.
and they were just at that point where they were looking for some additional resources. And my boss at that point in time, like, or the guy who employed us, he like looked through the resumes and he's like, well, it's the best kind of resource I can get, because it's people I can train up the way I want them,
Yeah.
and yeah, I landed the first role. This company, I think, leans towards the non-traditional side. It was the beginning of the kind of measurement of return on investment for like wellness programs offered by employers.
Okay.
So it was interesting. It was very much healthcare focused. Something I did not have an interest in before I started studying, or when I did actual science. I actually wanted to go into the investment area, and then I actually fell in love with healthcare. It's a really nice area of practice.
That's really unorthodox in regards to what you said in regards to going in, handing in your resume into the offices, driving around and going from there. The actuarial market is a competitive one now. I can imagine even more so during the financial crisis in regards to what you'd have to do. Is there any advice you would give to someone who I don't know, is just about to graduate or perhaps is struggling to break into the profession that you could, any words of wisdom you could give to anyone?
Yeah, I think don't underestimate the impact that a co-op term can have on your resume. I think
Yeah,
that makes a very, very big difference. So, for myself and a couple of other people that I know, like having good grades by itself, I don't think is good enough anymore. I think if you can
yeah,
work a couple of co-op terms, maybe in a couple of different practice areas, so you get a little bit of a breadth of exposure. I think that would put your resume, on the top of the pile at least. And then I think the other side of it, which is really would be very like for me, I find it very useful, is work on communication skills.
okay,
Actuaries traditionally don't tend to like interview very well,
yeah,
and like being personable, knowing how to answer questions, being well prepared for an interview does make a big difference. Making eye contact versus not, knowing when to stop talking, knowing when to start
yeah,
talking, that kind of stuff makes a big difference. And then again, good marks will help. So if you come out with a bunch of your exams exempted already,
yeah.
it means your employer can hit the ground running with you, and your time to qualifying as an actuary will be shorter as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and it's not easy. Interviews aren't easy for anyone, I don't think. But particularly, you've touched upon it there in the actuarial market, where maybe your communication style is not as good as maybe you want it to be, right? And those softer skills aren't quite there. I'm sure most who graduate and, as you say, get the exemptions, that technical side is more natural to them. Um, that kind of leads me on in regards to the early years of your actuarial career, because people I've spoken to have told me how important it is to network and how to relationship build, right? Which again is sometimes not the most natural for people, especially if they're remote working, especially if they're not in the office as regularly as maybe they, 10 years ago pre-COVID. Um, how important is that to network and relationship build? And did you have any mentors who helped support you in that way?
No, but that's an interesting question for me because I think I had to go through that networking and relationship building phase twice.
Okay.
So when you're a student, I guess the best networking opportunity for you would be those co-op terms, and then
Yep.
many universities will offer career fairs or career days where people will come out and employers would come out and have a stall, and you can go speak to people.
Yeah.
And in many cases, they'll have a little cocktail event or have some snacks and beers available, and
Yeah.
even if you feel like you don't want to attend those, I think that they are pretty useful. I used to have a colleague who says first make friends, then do business. And
Okay.
I think in many instances that does make a difference. Like you never know whether the person who is there at the career fair is the hiring manager for a specific role. You
Yeah.
might just walk in and see a friendly face, which makes a huge difference when you're applying for your first role, and that can be very useful. So it can sometimes be hard to be social,
Hmm.
but those career fairs and doing the co-op terms, I think, is probably the best thing you can do. When I started my career, LinkedIn wasn't such a big thing, but I think you
Yeah.
you can physically not work in the modern professional world without having a strong presence on LinkedIn. So build up a profile, follow, make your profile interesting in some way, shape, or form. When you're not working yet, that can be hard, but like showing interest in different groups that's part of the industry,
Yeah.
following different companies that might also be employers is very useful, and then reposting and sharing their content in a structured way can go a fair bit in helping you land that first job.
Yeah.
And then I think the second part of this is like when I moved over from South Africa to Canada, it's basically a fresh start for your career. Like unless you move with the company that you worked for before, which a lot
Yeah.
of people do. Like if you're at a big four consulting firm, they do offer international packages where you can just go work in another area.
Yeah.
But then it becomes hard again to network. You're in a new culture, you're in a new environment, new city. And then again, I guess it's just been a bunch of hardship. But when I moved, the pandemic hit us. So networking was
Hmm.
really, really hard.
Yeah.
And I got lucky. I think I just met for coffee with probably one of your peers, like a recruitment person,
Yeah.
and he knew somebody that was that he placed at the firm that I currently work for, and they had a connection, and that's the way that I landed that job as well. So I think without that networking, without that going out and meeting people face to face and actually having a physical presence, I might not have even had the job that I have now. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're with PBI right now. You've been with them roughly 7 years now. Big difference, right? South Africa to British Columbia. What was the driving force behind that for you?
Well, it was not career driven at all.
Okay.
I just wanted to come ride bikes in British Columbia mountains.
Yeah.
To be honest,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, I think a couple of years into my career, the South African Actual Society um, signed a mutual recognition agreement with the
Okay.
Canadian Institute of Actuaries. So it was not completely just, on a whimsical move.
Yeah.
I knew that I would be able to transfer my credentials over with reasonably low level of barriers to entry.
Yeah.
So I think career-wise, that's the thing that really pushed me. Like that's like we wanted to like in my late 20s, I wanted to explore the world a little bit,
Of course.
and the mutual recognition agreements does make it easy for qualified actuaries to move between certain countries.
Yeah, of course.
So that's definitely the one that made me choose Canada over some of the other ones. And then yeah, it's a wild world when I basically the only further west I can go from here from South Africa would be Alaska or Hawaii. You know,
Not much actuarial opportunity out there, I would
Yeah,
think.
so it was just the intention was to have a little wild adventure, and
Yeah.
but also like build a career while doing it. So Vancouver is one of the bigger Canadian cities, but not necessarily the biggest actuarial market. So it was tricky to break in. The market is small. There's quite a few consulting firms in the
Yeah.
city, and some insurers are starting to build a presence, but landing the first role was hard. But I feel like I've landed in a good spot. Like I've always been a consultant as well, so working in consulting opens up a bunch of avenues for you where you're not tied to a traditional actual firm, so you don't need to be
Yeah.
at an insurer. Um, and you know, yeah, that's it. I wanted to come have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, you've certainly done that. You've been there 7 years, so it's certainly worked out for you. And
Yeah.
I know how highly thought of you are. And you mentioned Vancouver, obviously big city in Canada, right? But when you think of the actuarial market, sometimes that's not the first place you think of. You can think of New York, or you think of London, these big cities, and sometimes that big city life isn't for everyone. People don't want that. People want to ride bikes in mountains, for example, and not be, you know, tall skyscrapers when they look out of the bedroom window. How did you come across the opportunity in Vancouver? Vancouver? Did you just move here originally for a lifestyle and then look for something, or were you already kind of aware that there was a presence there?
I was aware that there is a presence. So, I mean, just looking
Yeah.
at like Indeed and Monster and
Yep.
LinkedIn, you could see that there were roles available. But
Yeah.
comparing, like if you look for actuarial roles in Canada, it'll be, 7 roles in Toronto and
Yeah.
2 in Winnipeg and 1 in Vancouver, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I always knew that it's gonna be a barrier to entry. But
Hmm.
I definitely moved here for lifestyle, and then and then again, like, started by, instead of just trying by myself, like, I went to meet
Yeah.
with a recruiter, and he helped, identify some opportunities, and it eventually worked out. I can say one thing, which is, don't go job hunting over peak summer season.
Yeah.
Hiring managers are on vacation,
Yeah.
decision makers are not there, the process is really drawn out. I think, like, if you ever decide to move somewhere, whether it's Europe or North America, and you want to look for a job, just have a vacation during July and August.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a really, really good tip actually for actuaries, because we, on the other side, as a recruiter, well aware, of how processes can slow down when people are on vacation and going away, whatever, or school terms out. So that's a good tip. Was that what you found yourself in when you moved,
Yeah,
or?
100%. It's a lived experience. I would also say, like, it makes the process more frustrating and more stressful than it needs to be,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah,
everything is drawn out. You tend to then end up second guessing yourself, especially if you've had a couple of good conversations with
yeah,
people,
yeah.
and what ends up happening is people will say, oh, you know what, like, we've had a good conversation, but I really just need to loop in this person, they'll be back in 2 weeks.
Hmm.
So it ends up drawing out the process quite extensively.
Yeah.
I've seen,
Which
and it
which can
makes,
hurt your confidence, can't it? It can hurt your confidence, or
yeah,
you know, you're not at that time when you've just finished university or early careers. You haven't got all the money in the world, to be able to not do anything for a certain amount of time. So
yeah,
I think a lot of people find themselves in that situation, and it can be nerve wracking,
yeah.
when you make that move. So I think that's a good practical tip. And are there any more practical tips in your brain for students or recent grads listening, in regards to, I don't know, tools or platforms or resources that you could recommend to help boost their chances in the job market?
um Yeah, I think, I mean, we've spoken about the networking and
Yeah.
using LinkedIn. I think boosting your resume right now, like, when I'm looking at actual students, like, I want people who are data savvy.
Hmm.
I think you can definitely, actuaries are actually very well positioned in my mind for, the new wave of AI coming
Yeah,
through. Like,
for sure.
AI is in its current form, not much more than statistical models that many of us know fairly well, and being able to understand how data works and how it feeds into these tools can just actually future proof your career really well. I really like a platform called DataCamp.
Okay.
Yeah, just and Data Camp is set up really well for they actually have a finance track that teaches you how to use Python for finance.
Right.
So that kind of stuff. If you're proactive and you want to, like, work in the real world, I guess all of these little tips will be related to ensuring that you have real world skills when you come out of university,
Of course.
because
Yeah.
life doesn't look like a textbook.
No, you're absolutely right. And those tips are going to be really, really helpful because not everybody gets them, right? Not everybody has that mentor who they can lean on, or someone who can point them in a direction, or a parent that used to be an actuary or do this. So those tips, those might only seem small to you, but I think they'll be big for people who are looking to break in.
Yeah.
Um, and often, it's not easy when if you've already got a role and you're in early careers and you're in the midst of doing those exams, you've got work to do and you've got your exams to do, and doing extracurricular stuff on top of that can be really, really difficult. How did you manage your time, work responsibilities, and everyone's got a personal life, right? To and put all that together in the early years to make sure that you become a qualified actuary, but also have enough time to enjoy life whilst you're still young.
Oh, you're gonna laugh at me, but tongue in cheek, I stayed with my mom.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah,
She cooked for me and she ensured that my shirts were pressed every morning.
yeah,
So, but yeah, okay, that's all jokes aside. I think, I mean, like having a good level of self-discipline really
yeah,
helps, I think that's one of the things that's really important when you do start off your career is like working for a company that has a good study policy
yeah,
and has a good working culture around study policy also helps. I had a relationship with my company back then where if you've booked a study day, um, from both ends, there was an agreement that my work would be done, but there was also an agreement that they wouldn't load you up with extra stuff. So,
okay,
so when you took your day off to study, you really have that block of time set out to put the time in behind the books without
yeah,
being worrying about deliverables and work outputs. The other thing that's not directly related is I think lifestyle makes a big difference. You can really do more when your body and your mind is healthy. So I always try to hit the gym at least three,
hmm,
4 times a week. Go for runs, go for bike rides. And especially in the later exams, one of the things that I did, and as people laugh at me when I tell them the story, is I recorded my, those lists of what things do you need to do to clean data properly, what's the
yeah,
regulatory requirements to start up a short-term insurance business, that kind of stuff.
hmm,
Which in an exam setting, you just want to be able to fire them off one by one, and you need to memorize them. So I just made notes, recorded myself reading the notes, and then popped my earphones in and went for a run. That little life hacks, it seems to work, and I do feel like like when you're if you've gone for a run, you end up sleeping better. You can so finding that balance and finding the mix between working and studying and relaxing
hmm,
is really really important. And then I guess the last piece of it is having people around you that supports you in it. I think the hardest part of this is when you finish university, many people never look at books again.
yeah,
And it becomes really hard to be the person who says, you know what, I'm not going out for beers tonight because tomorrow I need to study, or I'm not going to join you guys at the weekend because I have a study day, or Easter. Easter is always a big cram session before the exams start.
yeah,
So
yeah,
no long weekend away for Easter. I'm gonna cram it in, and surrounding yourself with the people who would actually support you and not judge you for doing that.
yeah,
Surrounding yourself with people who would actually keep calling you even though you tell them you're going to study, makes a huge difference.
yeah. Because that's difficult, right? If you've got a friendship circle who are pulling you left and right,
Yeah.
you've told them that you're trying to study, you've got an exam coming up, but they're not really listening to you. They only want you where they're going, and that takes some discipline in
Yeah.
order to be able to say no, because I guess you know what it feels like to to do that exam and then finish that exam and then come out and go, "Oh, I didn't give it my all there. I didn't give my 100%," and they don't come around often. You know, it's not like it's going to be another one next week or next month. So it does hold you back, and kind of taking you back into regards to the relaxing piece, going out for a run, or you know, whatever your vice is, tennis, soccer, rugby, biking. It's important for people to be able to take themselves away from their notes or their laptop and decompress and just take a breather and enjoy not a lot of time, but the time that they can to themselves, because it will help them in the long run. Because I've spoken to a lot of people who feel like they're burnt out, you know, who have burnt both candles. No, what am I trying to say here? They've burnt candle at both ends, and that's only so much you can take before you burn out, right?
Yeah, and the other side of it now is like you need to consider that you are in your 20s and you need to enjoy some of that as well. Like I feel like the modern careers are so focused on, you know, productivity, finishing
Yep.
things up, wrapping up your exams, getting your qualifications, that I mean, you can speak to many people who are in their mid 30s or early 40s, and they're like, yeah, you know, my 20s was spent behind my desk,
Hmm.
and I should have done something different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I've spoken to people like that too, because time goes quicker than you realise, right? Before
yeah,
you know it, you're married, got a family, or whatever. And you only get your 20s once, right? So
yeah.
try to enjoy it as much as you can. Um, Moving on to kind of more tips from you, Garrett. Was there any myths about the actuarial career before you got into it? Any stories that people told you this is what you can expect, and that actually didn't materialize, that maybe might have been off-putting initially, but you got into the profession and realized actually it's nothing like what people said.
I think the only one is that you'll be doing like the most complex math all of the
Hmm.
time. I think that's definitely a myth that has to be debunked. Like a lot of
Right. Okay.
Well, a lot of the work we do is you know, starts off with simple projections and then gets built
Yeah.
out from there. You know, so I think that one is one of it. The other one is that actuaries don't have to work with people much.
Mm.
I think depending on where you end up with, like I ended up being a career consultant, so I end up you know, talking to people and
Hmm.
communicating quite a lot. So I think that's also why I was alluding to sharpening up communication skills earlier. It doesn't only help with interviews, but it also makes you a more dynamic individual and makes it easier for people to work with you, easier for people to understand you. Um, and yeah, I'd be hard pressed to think of a third one. Um,
Well, there were two good ones,
yeah,
because you know that complex mathematics. You know, outside looking in, people think that's pressure every day. Every day, that's something that that's going to be pushed on you. And I think you're right in regards to the second point as well, the communication style. You can really choose which way you go down, right? You can choose to be the client facing or career consultant as you are, who's comfortable and happy to do that. But there are other people on the other side of the coin who like to do the technical stuff, the back office stuff. And I think there's a route for both actuaries put away to go down the left or the right, but also you can change too. You might not be comfortable in your 20s to be able to do that communication piece, but as you get a bit older and a bit more mature, it might be something that actually you can pick up and you can learn, and you see somebody else do it and you go, actually I could do that. And because nobody's perfect on day one, right? No one's going to nail it the first attempt, whatever they try to do.
unfortunately not.
Yeah, I'd love to say that was about golf about me, but I've been doing it for about
Yeah.
10 years now, and I'm still nowhere near it. So there you go. But I'll ask you one more question, Garrett, before I let you leave. It's a good thought piece, really, and it's regards to advice. Um, is there a piece of a career advice or personal life advice that you've received that always kind of sticks with you? And if so, who gave it to you?
Yeah, I thought about this one a little bit.
Yeah.
I think one of the best pieces of career advice or just life advice would be to never stop learning.
Yep.
I think as actuaries, especially when you're done your exams, 8 to 10 years of studying, people are so tired of studying
Hmm.
that they really can't think about doing any more studies. But learning and studying doesn't necessarily have to be the same thing. I mean, if you want to go through a stint of just reading the Wikipedia article of the day, you can still see that as a learning because it's probably
Hmm.
stuff that you didn't know before. But just ensuring that you stay abreast of new developments and ensuring that you keep practicing and keep flexing the brain muscles to actually learn and consume new information. I think that's very useful. Otherwise, we're in a world now where skills can become stale pretty quickly,
Hmm.
and ensuring that you have like learn and it also makes you more adaptive, going forward. Being or be or makes you see patterns a little bit easier if the more it's like, oh yeah, I've learned. Finance is an interesting one where finance and physics are very close. Um, so, like maybe one day you watch a documentary on particle physics and then you end up doing some capital modeling one day and you recognize the math and you can see the picture in there. So yeah, I think learning doesn't need to mean studying, doesn't mean become an actuary and then become an MBA and then get your CIRA and then, have a designation list as long as your name behind your name. But just keep learning new things. And then a couple of interesting anecdotes. Like I think career-wise, like the more senior you get, the easier it is for you to see the forest for the trees. Like if you are, checking somebody's work, you oftentimes like you'll see senior people when you start off your career, look at your spreadsheet for 5 seconds and go, nope, it's not right. And then you go, well, how can you look at it for 5 seconds and know that it's not right? So it's an experience thing, but like in the short term, it's all about like figuring out the like what to look for. And
Yeah.
I had a colleague and a mentor who said if your feet's in the oven and your head's in the freezer, on average you're not okay. um,
I've never heard that before. That's new to me.
oh yeah, but
It's a good one.
but it points towards the fact that as actuaries we oftentimes use averages,
Yeah.
to do a lot of the work that we do. But on average, the numbers might look okay, but like sometimes you do need to look at the tails and you do need to look at the outliers to truly understand, the work that you're actually doing. And I think it's an interesting way of thinking about it, but because it's one of the simplifications that we make on a daily basis, that can run you into some trouble.
Yeah, absolutely.
um,
Um,
Yeah, and then I think the last bit of it, like for me as well, is I working in the non-traditional space, like picking up. I think the best piece of accidental skills that I picked up was working for a data company. Being able to know how databases work, learning how the backends of systems work, knowing how to write SQL queries and to build, Power BI dashboards, I think becomes very useful because it teaches you how to translate the data into a story that other people can understand. So I think uh, like when you're working with numbers all the time, um, we need to remember that we see numbers and they're very friendly to us, but a lot of people see numbers and they glance away from it. And depending, what who your clients are, like in my current role, a lot of our clients are people who are on a board of trustees, who are teachers and plumbers and nurses, and the numbers don't come as naturally to them. So being able to take the numbers and translate them into a relatable story that these people can use to make fairly big decisions on, I think is something that's really useful. And understanding the data and knowing how to work with it is very useful as well.
Amazing. Well, thank you for that, Gerrit. That was really informative and insightful. I think there's some things there that people can definitely take away and put into action from whether it's now or whether it's later on their career. I really, really, really appreciate that. So thank you for taking the time. That's it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for viewing. Any questions, anything like that, let me know. And have a good evening. Thanks.
Thank you.